is the main creative output for Crunchpot label founder Ben Arp. Cat began as an experimental electronic music project and continued to evolve until early 2005, when Arp settled on a hybrid of industrial and rhythmic noise as the main sound and creative output for Cat. With over 30 releases over the last 20 years and performances both in the UK and throughout the United States, Cat has established itself as a veteran and influential project within the industrial and rhythmic noise scene.
When did you begin composing music? And how did you record your first recordings?
I first recorded my first track, I want to say, summer of 1998, so I've been around a while. I went about it by collecting hardware gear because computer sequencing wasn't really that big of a thing yet. I mean, as far as what I had access to. So I had a room full of gear and did it that way, the hard way, kind of. But now I'm all computer based, and after doing that for almost 20 years, it's kind of become what I do. So I can't see going back to using the hardware sequencers, even though that's kind of becoming cool again. Just not really me. I like the simplicity of everything being on a computer. And so much has changed since I started, because we're now almost 20-something plus years on now since I started. So,
what are some of your musical influences?
My earliest musical influences growing up were hip-hop and rap. That was the first kind of style of music that really spoke to me in any way. I grew up around pop music because my parents listened to it, didn't really do much for me. So earliest musical influences were hip-hop and rap. As I got older, I started finding newer stuff, like alternative. You got your Nine Inch Nails and stuff like that. And then when I went to college, I started college radio, and that's when I really discovered industrial music. So if I were to pick an example from industrial scene, I would probably have to say Skinny Puppy, as they've stuck with me the most over the years and were hugely influential on me when I was a DJ starting out, and then as I got into sampling and making my own music.
What first attracted you to the dark and alternative electronic music genres?
Got attracted to the dark electronic genre mainly in college when I got into college radio and became a DJ. As I said, Skinny Puppy was kind of the first band that pulled me in. I was aware of bands like Nine Inch Nails, Nitzreb, the more bigger names, and like The Cure, even for as far as goth goes, when I was in high school, because I had friends that listened to that kind of stuff. I really kind of just got in deep when I became a DJ. That started me as a club DJ, and then from there I started doing my own music. So that's kind of like the stepping stone for me, was DJing.
What is your creative process? What forms your ideas that will turn into songs or tracks?
My creative process kind of comes from anywhere. Sometimes I'll be playing a video game, I'll get an idea. I'll be out on a walk, I'll get an idea. I don't really have a set creative process. Some days I feel like sitting down and working on tracks, some days I don't. It's been rough this year not having any real outside of the house experiences that would lead me to be inspired for something, because a lot of times I would play a show with other artists, I would hear something or see something, or a conversation I'd have out in public would be the thing that stirred an idea in my head. So this year has been really hard to get inspired to come up with stuff because we can't go anywhere. But overall, I think I can find inspiration just about at anything, a book I read, something I see on a movie I watch, etc. So, I mean, my creative process is kind of all over the place.
What is the best music production advice someone has given you?
Best advice I think anyone's given me was to not be focused on being 100% happy with a track or an album. Get it to about 80% and you're good, because you run into the problem of being obsessive and then you never finish a track, or you think it could be better and then it never comes out. And I think that has probably stuck with me the most, because I can be just as critical about my music as anyone else, but when it gets to a point where I don't totally hate it, then I think I'm done with it. And so I think that's been a very important thing for me to pick up, because when I first started out, I wanted things to sound a certain way and I just wasn't capable of getting it there. And that could have been discouraging to the point that I never continued making music. So that's got to be the best advice I've ever received from someone, because it grounds me so I don't spend way too much time on something with diminishing returns.
Cat has just released a new EP on Crunchpod in 2021 titled Embrace the Void, and is currently working on some remix projects and new productions for the end of the year.
Influential, controversial, admired and despised. Genre twisting, intense, in your face, meditative, melancholy, violent, maniacal, twisted. Throw these pieces together and you're presented with Manufactura, the gripping power noise, industrial, EBM, ambient, and IDM project from the mind of Carlos M., one of the most controversial figures in the modern rhythmic noise scene. For more than 20 years now, Manufactura has been behind some of the most creative, genre-pushing explorations of power noise, ranging from the straightforward club killers to gritty and atmospheric moods to lyrically driven EBM crossovers. By dealing with the uglier side of human nature from such a close and intensely personal perspective, there's something inherently more confrontational about his music that no doubt adds to the controversy. You can't dance to a Manufactura track and then forget about it. There's a lot more to Manufactura than aggression, though, and some of the most chilling moments are the quietest.
What are some of your musical influences?
I've got a lot of musical influences. Primarily, my main influence for Manufactura is David Lynch. When I was very young, I saw his Eraserhead movie, and it just warped my mind. But aside from that, everything from Depeche Mode to Bach, a lot of early post-punk, a lot of early industrial music that I grew up listening to. So as far as musical, what I do is mostly influenced mostly by David Lynch, and then lyrically it's mostly done by influence of Charles Bukowski.
What is the best music production advice someone has given you?
In terms of advice, there's been a lot of advice over the years. I've been fortunate to hang out and participate and work with a lot of interesting artists from all over the world, but I think my favorite one was Less is More. A friend of mine from Germany came over to Seattle when I was living there and wanted me to tag along into a production meeting that he was having with a band that wanted to hire him. And they played what they thought was their best track, which was this 8-minute opus with like 58 tracks. It was just madness, cyber, industrial, techno, EBM thing. And they were listening to it, and the whole time my friend is looking at me like he wanted to get out of there, like he didn't want to be there anymore. And in the middle of the song, there's a 3 to 4 second break, and in that break, he told them, stop, play that again. And he said, okay, that's it. That's the track. That little break is the track. Throw everything else away. And it broke their hearts. They looked like they'd worked on this track for like months. And within the 10-minute period, he composed an entire amazing track with just that 3 to 4 second break. And since then on, that became my ethos, less is more. You can finesse the sound, you can finesse the feeling, the tone of the song with a lot less if you don't have to worry about so much moving parts.
When did you begin composing music? And how did you record your first recordings?
I started back in 1996, 95. I was just messing around, recording my cats and household appliances, making experimental stuff, mostly for drug consumption and, entertaining my friends. And then my best friend gave me a professional microphone for my birthday. And then since that day, I just kind of got the ball rolling. I initially began just recording found sound and doing experimentations. Eventually, I was doing everything from tape to tape with multiple tape decks and cutting tape and trying to create weird sounds, which is what interested me. Gradually, a friend of mine who heard what I had done, he was blown away. He said, I need to get a computer. So a couple years later, I did get a computer and I started recording that way.
What is your creative process? What forms your ideas that will turn into songs or tracks?
As far as creative process, it just depends. Initially, it was just sound. It was about creating a mood, creating a tension, some kind of feeling that you could convey just with sound alone, whether it be fear or intrigue or mystery. And then gradually, when I started doing lyrical work, it started with poetry. I've been doing poetry for a long time, and so it goes back and forth. Sometimes I write a poem, and as I'm working on it, I'm hearing melodies and rhythms, and so eventually those poems get turned into songs. And then on the other hand, I do music where I compose the music, and as I'm working on the music, the words start coming to me, and so the words eventually become part of the song. So it goes back and forth. As far as what inspires me to work on music is usually personal, experiences, very much in the way of Lynch and Bukowski.
What first attracted you to the dark and alternative electronic music genres?
I got into the dark alternative styles, I guess, when I first moved to the United States here in Hollywood. I started listening to electronic music. It really got into me because I didn't understand the language at first, and so I confused some of the German material that was being played on the radio, like Kraftwerk and 99 Luftballons and stuff like that, and I thought it was English, so I started training myself listening to stuff like that, and then eventually a few months down the road I learned that it was actually German. And then gradually listening to the radio, the late 80s, early 80s actually, K-Rock, they would do midnight shows and they would play a lot of experimental stuff. And that's how I heard some of the earlier stuff, Christian Death and a bunch of other great artists that kind of put their fingerprint on me.
Manufactura has just released their 10th album titled And the World Succumbs to Vermin on CrunchPod. A new EP has also been released, to be followed later in the year with a new remix album, which will feature several new tracks.